Chapter 125 to 127. Vice Commander, this is the intelligence from the front lines. Yuto nodded slightly, glancing at the contents of the scroll. Iwagakure attacks Kumogakure forces. The Third Raikage alone stays behind. Yuto contemplated, carrying the scroll to Minato Namikaze's quarters. Minato-senpai, could you take a look at this? Inside, Minato was bandaged up, with Kushina Uzumaki tenderly applying medicine to him. The blue-eyed young man smiled wryly. Yuto, for these 2 days while I'm recovering, handle the routine matters yourself. No, this is important. I can't decide it on my own. Yuto handed the scroll to Minato. As Minato read it thoughtfully, Yuto asked Kushina, Kushina-senpai, how is Minato-senpai's condition? Not very optimistic. The red-haired woman pouted. The fight with Moon God consumed a lot of chakra, and then he went to assist Jiraiya-sensei and got injured by the Rinnegan's technique. Nagato is truly formidable. Nagato has grown even stronger than a month ago, Minato suddenly spoke up. Intense emotions seem to give his eyes new power, and he's still young. He will continue to grow. Cough, cough. Minato began coughing violently. Yuto's temples throbbed with concern as he frowned. Your lung injury is severe. It's better to speak less. The field hospital's medics aren't very skilled. I'll come and treat you myself after I finish here. You need to be careful, or it might leave lasting damage. No need. You're temporarily acting as the commander now, and there are more... Ouch! Kushina's face darkened as she pinched Minato's waist, then turned to Yuto with a bright smile. Thank you, Yuto-kun. I'll leave Minato in your care. Minato sighed helplessly. It's really troubling you, Yuto. Since the Hokage is still here, let's consult him about the matter in the scroll. Yuto nodded with a smile and left the room with Minato. It was the 6th hour after the Moon God encirclement battle, and night had fully fallen. For Konoha, Kumogakure, and Iwagakure, this was an utter defeat. Moon God had left grandly, not only taking the bait infused with Uchiha's power, but also Mako. The Hyuga clan had lost a young man and woman, practically announcing the Byakugan had been leaked. Nagato, after breaking the 4 Red Yang formation, fought fiercely with Jiraiya. When Hiruzen Sarutobi and Minato Namikaze arrived, Jiraiya was already on the brink of death. Nagato, with experience against the Flying Thunder God technique, managed to escape at a cost, even injuring the rescue-minded Minato. Up till now, Jiraiya was still in critical condition, with Tsunade personally treating him, leaving Minato unattended. Minato needed rest, so the Western Front was temporarily entrusted to Vice Commander Yuto. The youth had only time to throw Mako's body into Shikotsu Forest before hurrying back to the camp, working non-stop since without time to deal with the spoils of war. To encircle Moon God, Konoha had sacrificed too much. Besides some uncertain intelligence, there was no substantial gain. All operations concerning Moon God will be frozen, and the village will only maintain minimal intelligence-gathering activities. This was the decision made by Hiruzen 2 hours ago, filled with resignation. However, everyone understood that the storm caused by the 4 Nations Alliance's failure to kill Moon God was far from over, at a temporary office in the camp. Onoki can't be underestimated. He took advantage of this brief alliance to target Kumogakure. Hiruzen closed the scroll, looking at the pale Minato and the respectful Yuto, sighing inwardly. Before the outbreak of the Ninja World War, what was Konoha's lineup? Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sanin, Minato Namikaze, Danzo Shimura, the Uchiha, the Hyuga, the Ino Shikacho, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Truly, a gathering of elites, Hiruzen couldn't see how they could lose. But now, with Orochimaru leaving Konoha, Danzo driven out of the village's power center, Jiraiya severely injured, Tsunade still not over her hemophobia, Minato with lung damage needing rest, and the Hyuga clan losing two main family members in succession, this was almost the weakest moment in Konoha's nearly 50-year history. The strategy of having the Hokage stay in the village while the younger elites fight on the front lines to build fame and experience had failed. With Jiraiya's severe injury, fighting on two fronts was a luxury. Konoha's current Kage-level combat strength wasn't enough to hold off wind, earth, lightning, and water nations simultaneously. Hiruzen frowned deeply, speaking softly. "Minato, what do you think?" The yellow flash replied with a wry smile. "Hokage-sama, if Iwagakure indeed kills the third Raikage A, no matter how vengeful Kumogakure is, they'll have to retreat. Their 8 Tails Jinchuriki is also captured, and their strength is lacking. In that case, our western front will face the aggressive Iwagakure and the puppet-wielding Tsunagakure, while the eastern front has to fight Kirigakure alone, or even with the grieving Kumogakure. Even with Yuto's treatment, my lung injury will take a month to heal. Yuto and I can hold the west, but the east will need you on the battlefield, yet the village..." Minato trailed off. Hiruzen understood his point. The Hyuga had suffered greatly, and as Hokage he needed to ensure appeasement and compensation, which required his presence. Danzo wasn't a compliant person, and the elders weren't united. Various shinobi clans still needed oversight and suppression. During wartime, the base camp couldn't afford any disturbances. As Hokage, Hiruzen couldn't leave the village for long. "Minato, speak directly. Hokage-sama, the Raikage cannot die. We should save him and use this opportunity to form an alliance with Kumogakure, having them help us withstand Kirigakure's pressure in the east and distract Iwagakure. If the Raikage survives because of us, the alliance will be strong." Hiruzen closed his eyes briefly. "Yuto, what do you think?" "Hokage-sama, Minato-senpai's proposal is correct." Yuto replied calmly, appearing as the loyal hand of Konoha's fourth leader. "Good." Hiruzen suddenly smiled. Despite the village's current critical state, the new leaves had grown to shield from storms. "Minato, stay in the camp!" Hiruzen stood, rubbing his weary shoulders, continuing, "Yuto, you, your sensei, and I will make the trip." In the land of waterfalls, a Konoha team is moving swiftly. The team is divided into 2 parts. At the front are 3 individuals: a short man in ceremonial robes, a boy with white eyes and black hair, and a beautiful blonde woman. Trailing far behind is a standard wartime unit configuration: 14 Jonin, 260 Chunin, and 577 Genin, along with ambush, reconnaissance, medical emergency, and frontal combat units. This is the Konoha unit heading to rescue the third Raikage. Hiruzen, Yuto, and Tsunade are at the front, with the support team following distantly. Further behind, a massive Konoha force of nearly 10,000 has set off, just 4 hours behind Hiruzen's team. The goal of this rescue mission is to free the Raikage from danger. As long as Konoha intervenes strongly, Iwagakure will retreat. "Sensei, how is Jiraiya-sama doing?" Yuto suddenly asked, turning to the blonde woman beside him. "He's out of danger, but his throat was crushed and his spine is broken. He won't be able to fight for a long time," Tsunade sighed. "And Minato?" "I heard he got stabbed in the lung by an enemy's strange weapon," Yuto said with a wry smile. "He's better off than Jiraiya, but he still needs to rest," Tsunade replied. "Damn Moon God and Akatsuki. If only Grandpa were here." Tsunade gritted her teeth, but then deflated. The village he treasured is being bullied like this. Thinking about it, I've really let Grandpa down. And Nawaki, too. "Sensei, losing to the Rinnegan isn't shameful. It's the eye of a sage," Yuto consoled. "One day we'll defeat those 2 bastards." Tsunade patted her apprentice's shoulder, not responding. Despite Yuto's talent, fighting against the Rinnegan was a daunting task. In the shinobi world, a Keki Genkai represents at least a decade's worth of advantage, and for the Rinnegan, the gap could span generations. As for the moon god, the blonde woman considered him a more terrifying enemy than Nagato with his Rinnegan. His ability to see through her battle tactics with a single glance was an impressive talent. Yuto was still a child, impulsive. It was best to avoid mentioning Akatsuki and the moon god in front of him to prevent any rash actions. If anything happened to Yuto, lost in thought, Tsunade's gentle hand on Yuto's made the boy feel sleepy. In this brief day, Yuto had used God's mask twice in fierce battles, managed matters at the Konoha camp in Minato's absence, and now was following Hiruzen on a mission. He was exhausted and hadn't even dealt with the Uchiha bait and Meiko's corpse. If not for the urgent mission to rescue the Raikage, he would have already gone home to sleep. Yuto activated his Byakugan, seeing the support team 5 kilometers behind, not even their shadows visible. Hiruzen, at the front, was deep in thought, planning for the future, and had no time to notice his apprentice's small movements. The Byakugan is truly useful, Yuto thought. "Sensei," he said nonchalantly, moving closer to Tsunade, whispering in her ear, "I'm so tired. Let me rest on you for a bit." He wrapped his arms around her shoulders, leaning on her, his face buried in her golden hair, his lips brushing her slender, pale neck. "Sensei, keep an eye on the Hokage for me. Don't let him see." The warm breath from his lips on her neck made Tsunade shiver. "Yuto, are you a child?" she scolded softly. There was no response. Yuto's breathing was steady. He had fallen asleep. "You?" Tsunade twitched her mouth, wanting to drop him but couldn't bear to. Instead, she supported his half-leaning body, letting him sleep more comfortably. Afterwards, Tsunade stole a glance at the empty space behind and then at Hiruzen ahead, her heart inexplicably racing. "Why does it feel like we're thieves?" she thought. The wind's flow suddenly became erratic. Even this slight change, undetectable by most instruments, was like a thunderclap to a master like Hiruzen. It was the taste of jutsu, Hiruzen thought with a sigh. Finally, you managed to hold out until now. "Tsunade, Yuto, it's coming!" Hiruzen called out loudly. Bang! A dull sound came from behind. Hiruzen instinctively turned, seeing Yuto clutching his head in pain and Tsunade hurrying along. "Sorry, Hokage-sama," Yuto said sheepishly, rubbing his head. "I hit a tree." "Humph. And you call yourself a lion," Tsunade teased him unusually. Hiruzen was stunned. With Tsunade's head lowered, he didn't see her blushing cheeks and assumed it was just a reprimand. He comforted, "Yuto, you've worked hard lately. After this mission, take a good rest." "Yes, Hokage-sama," Yuto beamed. "I really want to sleep on a soft pillow." Boom! A tree fell with a crash. Tsunade casually rubbed her wrist, as if she hadn't just knocked it down. Yuto immediately shut up and focused on moving forward. Hiruzen shook his head, thinking it was just a minor disagreement between the master and apprentice. He continued, "I sense chakra in the wind. We're close to the battlefield. A is indeed tough, holding out till now. It's his fate." "Hokage-sama, should we charge straight in?" Yuto asked. "No. Intelligence reports Iwagakure deployed nearly 10,000 shinobi, while Kumogakure has only the 3rd Raikage holding the rear. Charging in isn't wise." "Let's wait until the support team closes in," Hiruzen said. The 3 stopped. Hiruzen, still worried about the village's future, took out his pipe, looking towards the battlefield, puffing away. Yuto approached Tsunade. The blonde woman gave him a warning look, but to her surprise, he was only discussing the attack plan seriously, respectful and earnest, like an ideal apprentice. Tsunade blinked, feeling uneasy, but, as the elder, too embarrassed to bring up the earlier incident. Helpless, Tsunade huffed, standing beside Yuto, slightly raising her head. In that moment, she realized something. Yuto had indeed grown, taller since he left the village. His lips could touch her forehead. Tsunade's mind flashed with this unsettling thought. Silver arcs of lightning from the lightning release technique cut through the earthen wall formed by an earth release jutsu, smashing the Iwagakure ninja behind it. In a single strike, the chest of this Chunin exploded, and he died instantly, without even a scream. Turned expressionlessly, flicking the charred blood off his hands. His feet were planted firmly on the ground, unmovable. He couldn't remember how many Iwagakure ninjas he had killed. Was it the 90th? The 190th? The 490th? The first hour? The second hour? The fifth hour? Countless corpses piled at his feet, each with different expressions, some with fear, others still roaring defiantly, and some completely numb from the horrors of war. But regardless of their last thoughts or life experiences, they all died under A's hands. However, even for someone of A's caliber, killing so many ninjas took a toll on him. Every ninja had chakra, and with each kill, A expended a corresponding amount of energy and stamina. Still, A knew he had to stand firm like a mountain, blocking all Iwagakure ninjas until his subordinates could safely retreat, even if it meant losing consciousness and getting decapitated by Onoki's dust release. This is the fate of a Kage. If asked why, A couldn't explain. Even if he could, he wouldn't want to. The Yotsuki clan, which bore the name of the Kage, never bothered with lofty speeches. If it meant dying, so be it. Why bother with words? What did Tobarama Senju and Yagura Karatachi think before they died? A didn't know, but he believed that those two Kages must have felt a sense of relief in their final moments, just like he did at this very moment. Lightning arced as A laughed loudly, roaring like a thunder beast. In the sky, Onoki watched the pile of Iwagakure corpses below, his brows furrowing uncontrollably. He hadn't expected that even after being injured by the moon god, A still maintained such fierce fighting spirit. A cornered beast is the most dangerous, drawing strength from the edge of death. Onoki had thought A was just a hawkish warrior-type leader who excelled at charging ahead with loud shouts, possessing nothing but peak-level taijutsu. Now he realized A truly lived up to the title of Kage. However, A, you've caused enough chaos. Your stamina and chakra must be running low. Onoki sighed, standing up in midair. Just then, a massive staff, as thick as a leg, suddenly appeared in the midst of the battlefield. It stretched 30 meters long, one end held tightly by a small man wearing a sacred robe. Boom. Like a rolling millstone, the adamantine staff swept across, crushing all Iwagakure ninjas in the area. A lion-like roar echoed simultaneously as a boy with white eyes wrapped in black bandages began his charge, combining monstrous strength and gentle fist techniques in a perfect harmony of high temperature, wind pressure, and water pressure. He charged through the outer layer of the Iwagakure army, killing his way through in the blink of an eye, leaving a 2-meter-wide trail of blood behind him. Every Iwagakure ninja in his path was dead. Heavenly foot of pain! A woman's voice rang sharply, and with a stomp of her foot the ground collapsed and cracked, as if a divine hand pressed down. Countless Iwagakure ninjas fell into the fissures, and even those who avoided the gaps were struck by flying debris, dying instantly. Simultaneously, various jutsus lit up on the periphery of the Iwagakure forces. Konoha ninjas in green armor appeared, charging forward, catching the Iwagakure off guard and causing their formation to collapse. Hiruzen! Yuto Hyuga! Tsunade Senju! Onoki's face changed, his eyes fixed on the third Hokage wielding the adamantine staff. Onoki! Hiruzen raised the staff with one hand, pointing it at the third Tsuchikage from afar. I heard you want to test if my Enma can withstand your dust release? Come on! He laughed heartily. I'm right here! Hiruzen! At this moment, A spoke suddenly, his expression complex. Konoha saved me! What price must Kumogakure pay? The third Hokage was taken aback, not turning his head, but replying, Raikage, you may appear rough, but you're quite thoughtful. We'll discuss that later. But no matter what, you must survive. He paused, his tone very solemn. To die for your subordinates is the duty of a keg. To live for your subordinates is also the duty of a keg. Closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. When he reopened them, he walked forward and stood beside Hiruzen without a word. Onoki's face shifted slightly. Opposite him were 4 top-tier fighters and 1,000 Konoha ninjas. Even if they could be defeated, it wouldn't be quick. And with Slugs and Tsunade's medical ninjutsu, it was unclear who would wear down whom. Moreover, Hiruzen was cautious. Since he was here, more Konoha reinforcements would surely follow. Given the distance from Land of the Waterfall to the Konoha front line, the main forces would arrive in about 3 hours. Onoki tugged at his already thinning hair and cast a jutsu into the sky. A non-lethal but distinct Earth release signal appeared in the sky, signaling retreat. After a brief commotion, the Iwagakure forces began moving towards their territory. If no advantage could be gained, there was no need for unnecessary sacrifice. Onoki took a deep look at the people below, then turned and left. Who? A exhaled heavily, supporting himself with one hand as he knelt, blood flowing profusely. Is this a wound from the moon god? Hiruzen stared at the bloody hole in the Raikage's left chest, frowning. Yes. Panted, not hiding anything since Konoha had just saved his life. It was initially treated, but it reopened during the fight with Iwagakure. The moon god's strike contained both repulsive and attractive forces, constantly tearing and biting, severely damaging the surrounding muscle tissue. The actual injury is worse than it looks. The moon god, huh? Hiruzen smiled bitterly, his good mood from the successful rescue plan shattered. He's indeed a troublesome figure. Take some time to recuperate. All right, I'll return to my village. Our Kumogakure frontline headquarters is there. Stood up, speaking seriously. I swear on the honor of the Yotsuki clan during this war, unless Konoha attacks first, Kumogakure will not infringe upon the Fire Country's interests. In their words, the two Kages had decided to halt the conflict between the Fire and Lightning countries. It seemed abrupt, but for Kumogakure, which had temporarily lost the Eight Tails Jinchuriki, the survival of the Third Raikage was crucial, and forming an alliance was the best way to repay Konoha's goodwill. Thank you. Hiruzen sighed in relief. Actually, there's no need for this war to continue, not just for Konoha and Kumogakure. Remained silent, shaking his head. After a long pause, Hiruzen sighed and took out his pipe. The Third Raikage was indeed a rough warrior. He reached out for the pipe from Hiruzen, and the two smoked together, enveloped in a cloud of smoke. He avoided Hiruzen's suggestion to end the Ninja World War, and Hiruzen didn't press the matter. They both knew that until enough pain and suffering accumulated, the war wouldn't stop. TN. Welp, my country just heated up some oil in a wok and jumped into it.